Okay, hello Charles. We had a little bit of music doubling that was confusing me for a moment there. Welcome, Charles. Sunday with Charles,
Well,
and I apologize that I'm not there with you. I think everyone saw I was meeting with Larry Klayman the other day, so I'm just traveling here for a bit, and we've got some important things coming up this week, but we can never miss a Sunday with Charles, can we?
no, we certainly can. And thanks so much for attending to all these very complicated logistics to make it actually happen.
Yeah. The other thing that's happening, Charles, that's a little disappointing is that we're live streaming today on the 21st Century 3D YouTube channel, which of course is a legacy channel from my previous business, and that really frustrates our progress, which I believe, of course, is the intention of the malicious anonymous strikes that keep happening, because you see that way fewer people get to see the broadcasts when they go out live. I do want to remind people that they can still see the live streams as they happen on patreon.com, and it's really important for people who enjoy the program to become sponsors by going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And when you do that, even for as little as $1 a month, all of the live stream videos are there, and you can keep up with everything we're doing on Crowdsource the Truth. So that's what we've been doing to try to protect against some of these attacks, just to diversify the platform. Of course, Charles, you know, we're on VK.com, so our friends in Russia can watch us there, and the audience is growing on VK.com. We're very popular in Russia.
And not just in Russia. I think you've got a nice audience on Facebook and Periscope, and we will get back to having a monster audience on YouTube eventually.
Oh, that's right. You know, the other thing I wanted to tell you, Charles, is that the initial strike on the original Crowdsource the Truth YouTube channel, there were two strikes, of course. The initial strike disables live streaming, and the second strike shut the channel down from any video uploading at all. What's just occurred, of course, is one of the strikes has expired, and so now I am able to upload to the original Crowdsource the Truth channel, and what I'm doing is I'm restoring all the videos that we've made in the past, however long it was since that strike occurred, and it's a significant number of videos. So I've added a few of them, but our audience of 58,000 on there can see some, and there are a lot of people responding to those videos saying, hey, great to see you again. So perhaps I'll make a video just advising people of exactly what happened, as it were.
That could be a new special show.
That's right. But of course, people can still find all of the Sunday with Charles episodes in the playlist, and that playlist is on the original channel. We've got Closing In on there. We've got Sunday with Charles, some great shows. I've been meaning to put some of these graphics onto t-shirts and Redbubble, and if people want to stock up on Crowdsource the Truth goods and wares, they can get those at Redbubble. But you've prepared, of course, another fantastic presentation for us today, and before we get into that, I do always like to show your Twitter page. Your Twitter following is exploding as you approach 30,000 Twitter followers, and you are always tweeting out some great information there. People can find you at Charles Ortel on Twitter, and look at all these great followers. You've got General Flynn in there, and so a lot of interesting information on your Twitter page. How's everything going, Charles?
Everything's going fine, and you know, I'd like to do a brief shout out to the people at Twitter. I mean, I don't particularly like the partisan filters that are in place on Twitter, but I have to say that comparing Twitter and Facebook, I find that Twitter is an excellent tool to reach out to people and to get the message going. Thank you to my followers for giving me so many interesting comments. Those who get abusive get blocked. It's a very simple policy I have. You don't get 3 strikes with me. And you know, basically, from time to time, I get an abusive idiot, and that person is immediately blocked. But more often than not, I mean, the overwhelming majority of comments and tweets or whatever are very helpful, and some are enormously helpful. There's some diligent people around the world. I won't say the person's name, but there's somebody in South America who's doing tremendous work helping us along, and a lot of people really do send wonderful comments via Twitter. So, they help us. We've got to at least give them a shout out.
Absolutely. And I won't go into the articles that you've got on Twitter, because I know you've prepared a presentation for us as usual, and I'm sure you'll cover all of these topics in that. And without further ado, why don't we just go right to it?
Sure. So, unfortunately in America, we do have this subsection of the country that are grifters, con artists. And, one could argue that it's a very large percentage of the country when you start thinking about all the many televangelists who've gone down the wrong way in the political class and now the fake news, et cetera. You could make an argument that there's a large percentage of this population are grifters. But when I say grifters, I mean out and out con artists, people who are saying that they're selling you vanilla ice cream when in fact they're selling you coal. When there's an obvious difference. You expected something that was white and sweet tasting, and you got dark coal, but you parted with your money. That's fraud. And in its simplest terms, that's what the Clintons have been doing with their various, in quotes, charities. They go around telling you that what they're doing is enormous good works, and they represent the various government authorities, federal, state, foreign, have looked through all these papers, that it is responsibly controlled. They talk about all the enormous sacrifices they're making. They themselves claim to have given money to the charity in size. I think the Family Foundation claims 5 to 10 million or more may have gone from their mitts into this supposed foundation. Well, the reality is very different. As people who follow what you and I have been doing now since August of 2010, when you follow it carefully, what you see is that this isn't actually a charitable organization at all. And so I'm staying on the title page here of the presentation.
Yeah.
And what they're doing, what we're going to focus on today, beyond telling you what recently happened that's significant and what will happen that should be significant, we're going to be focusing on a very interesting place. And that is a place where the New York Times was completely conned, willingly or not, we don't know yet, but completely conned in November of 2013. And we're going to go in some depth through that so that you see how badly the Clintons misled the supposed gray lady, the supposed, arbiter of news. The crack team at the New York Times was completely flummoxed on the September 2nd, 2013, and every day since then, the Clintons have illegally attempted to usurp control over a publicly supported organization. This is something you cannot actually do in the United States of America. When you set up something that's supposed to house the presidential records that were created during Bill's 2 presidential terms, you have your private donors give money to create this complex in Little Rock. You then turn these papers over to the National Archives. The National Archives requires, the way the legislation is drafted and the way the law works, the gift had to come from a validly organized and operated foundation, which the Clinton Foundation was not on the date of the grant. And then the Clinton Foundation represented that it would always, through the life of the grant, be a publicly supported organization. Well, when Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton took control on November 2nd, 2013, of the Clinton Foundation, they broke that forever. You cannot put that genie back in the bottle. You can't put Humpty Dumpty back together. And you can't ask me to stop fracturing metaphors or whatever I was just doing there.
What about toothpaste in the tube, Charles?
You can't do that either. That a horse has left the barn as well. But so what we're going to do is spend some time exactly exposing a bunch of facts which, of course, the Clinton Foundation has tried to hide. You can't find this stuff on their website that easily. And certain things you still cannot find on their website, which they represent to be their principal portal to the world. So we're going to show you that in some depth. If we go to the second page, I can quickly run through that, Jason. That's our standard disclaimer. Mm-hmm. And maybe for people who are following this on 21st century for the first time recently, it's important that you dwell on these words a little bit. Our shows, Jason, my work, and the guests that we have on, is work that is performed exposing our references, our source material to you, the viewership, so that you can form your own ideas about whether we're correct or incorrect, whether we've got misplaced emphasis, whether we're not shading it properly. But we provide access through all of our presentations to the source material. And there are, at this point, tens of thousands of pages of underlying documentation. So there's a lot of stuff here, which is what the Clinton Foundation and the people behind it rely upon. They rely upon this to overwhelm the audience and leave you in a place where who are you going to believe? A former president, an aspiring president, or your lying eyes? That's basically the place they put you. And so we have been structuring these presentations with an eye towards gripping the interest of investigators and prosecutors around the world. And that strategy, I think, is working. It has been taking time. Donald, I checked actually just now, the IRS still has an acting head, and the tax-exempt organizations department still has an acting director. But Donald Trump still does not yet have his people into the IRS. It's unclear whether he has as many people, U.S. attorneys, appointed that, are, let's just say, post-Bush, Clinton, Obama. He has some important ones, we know, in Little Rock, another one in Salt Lake City, another one in Illinois and elsewhere. But it's not clear he has all the people across the line he needs. It's not clear he has all the judges across the line that he needs. But nonetheless, it is clear that from what we see in the public domain, that progress is finally happening. And it's also clear that the Clinton Foundation faces, as do all foundations, including the donors to the Clinton Foundation, importantly, face a major deadline in about a week or so, on May 15th, or thereabouts. The Clinton Foundation is going to have to file request an extension, and they're going to have to also make filings in many states. And in many cases, the state laws require that if there's a material change, i.e. tax exposure, i.e. you're under FBI investigation, i.e. under state or foreign investigations, you better well tell people about that. Right. So the Clinton Foundation is in a world of hurt right now, in my opinion. I think the wheels of justice are trained on the Clinton Foundation. And until we see an indictment, we're going to continue this process of making sure the prosecutors see what we see. Yeah. And so therefore, we're going to get a little bit more heavy into the detail today.
Charles, something that I've observed along the lines of what you're saying is that it seems that the more pressure that is put on these people and the more jeopardy that they're in, and I'm thinking of Andrew McCabe and James Comey, the more brazen they become in their acting like nothing is wrong. It also seems in many ways, we've heard that SES is the keystone of whatever, but it seems like maybe SES members in the Department of Justice, or specifically the FBI, are the keystone to this whole conspiracy. And I have a very strong kind of feeling that when Andrew McCabe and James Comey face serious prosecution, they are going to be the first two major dominoes to fall. And James Comey is one tall tree. When that thing, the bigger they are, Charles, the harder they fall.
Well, we'll get into that a little bit in the body of the presentation, but the various characterizations of the Inspector General report are quite encouraging. Mm-hmm. They suggest that Mr. Horowitz and his team, his big team, are playing this straight and are following all the leads as far as they need to be followed. This morning, there was chatter about how Horowitz, I forget who was being interviewed. It was John Ratcliffe, the House Judiciary Chairman, was, I think, speaking to Maria Bartiromo, and he was saying that the Horowitz report may not even be released until late May, early June. because new leads have come to their attention with regard to the email investigation. So I'm hopeful that given the first thing that came out, given the evidence that's there, it's not like we're dealing, when it comes to the Clinton Foundation, it's not like we're dealing with a whole bunch of secret stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there in the public domain already that is not explained yet and is obviously constituting unprosecuted charity fraud. So I hope what we're going to see here is Horowitz is going to weave together, and the public is going to weave together, and the prosecutors are going to weave together the fact that suppressing the Clinton Foundation investigation, which is what truly did happen, while Hillary was trying to become anointed as the first female president, suppressing that is an integral and related part of the mishandled investigation, which we know started on July 10th, 2015, into supposedly mishandling emails. They're not separate issues. They're related. The reason you had a secret server, secret devices, and you held on to all this evidence is because you were using the Clinton Foundation as a key conduit to trade money for power and power for money. And the two are related. And the reason I think, in my opinion, that so many people are not cooperating is because this gigantic conspiracy is a long-standing one. It goes way back. It involves establishment Republicans, establishment Democrats. It involves the IRS, the Department of Justice, the Postal Service, foreign governments, foreign intelligence services, many corporations, investors, and donors. So there are a lot of people who have a lot to lose, and Donald Trump is taking on, the deepest part of the deep state swamp. And so you can expect resistance, and I cut him and his team some slack, because I think we have to, because it is such a gigantic problem that nobody else has been willing to actually take on. Everybody who seems to go through Washington and spend more than a couple, 4 years there ends up in the swamp.
Right. Yeah, and so it's been said that Trump is doing what Kennedy attempted to do, and hopefully there's lessons learned from that unfortunately failed attempt the first time around. But it's certainly bold, and I sincerely hope he'll be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also important to remember that when Kennedy tried what he was trying, military spending as a percentage of the total activity in the U.S. government was, I want to say, a very high number. It might have been more than 20 or even 30%. It is a big, big number. So the military-industrial complex was a lot more significant share of total activity, economic activity, than it is today. And arguably, perhaps Donald Trump, given the power of social media, given the fact that nobody serious can say, I'm all in for corruption. Corruption is the way to go. That's the way we run these things. Nobody can stand up with a straight face and say, that's how we roll in America. Or even in many of these supposedly advanced economies around the world. So the team of ordinary citizens, people just like you and just like me, Jason, who, we go out, we try to provide a product or good or service that the public wants, and we charge reasonable prices. We try to spend less than we make. We try to save, and we try to live honestly. I think that's more normal inside the U.S. And in fact, throughout much of the U.S., that's the way people behave, and they expect their leaders to behave the same way. And what we're seeing here in this Washington, D.C. that didn't work, in this attempted coup that I think was launched after Hillary Clinton did a faceplant on November 7th, 2016, I think Americans know that something very crooked has been going on here. And I think the polling suggests that they're inclined to side with Donald Trump on the notion that this was a witch hunt. And I think there's growing appetite, thanks to your work and what we're doing here and others. There's growing appetite to know the real truth about this.
Yeah.
And then to hold people responsible who have been corrupting this great nation for so long, whatever party they may be in.
Now, Charles, did I hear you correctly when you said that under Kennedy's presidency, the overall percentage of military spending was higher than it is today?
It is, relative to the, because back then we were fighting the Soviet Union, we were fighting communist China, We had just come off World War II and the Korean War. So if you go into the math of it, which is on the National Income and Product Accounts database of the Bureau of Economic Analysis, you go back into those years, you'll see what I'm talking about. Military, in 1960 through 62 or 3, whatever it was, the Great Society had not been born. So Johnson's gigantic spending programs that mushroomed, that people weren't spending on that yet. So military, we were spending on, as Donald Trump likes to say, bigly, and the math shows it.
Very good. Well, I mean, of course, we've got the, you know, what Zbigniew Brzezinski called the technocratic whatever that didn't really exist in 1962 with computers and all the things that are being done to spy on ordinary Americans through the NSA and everything. It's almost like a whole other category of spending. But I digress. Should we get to the meat of the presentation?
Let's spend a few minutes on the next page. You've already put the playlist up.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. I'll move my. Give me 1 second. So what we're seeing play out here is answering the question: how deep is this rot? I mean, recently Lisa Page and Peter Baker, or somebody Baker over at the FBI, just resigned suddenly. And there are articles coming out. The first one about how there's absolute chaos in the FBI. And I think what we have to be clear about here is that Bob Mueller is ultimately responsible for the chaos at the FBI. I mean, I just boggles the mind to me that anybody could decide to select Bob Mueller to look into this supposed collusion thing when its tentacles go all the way back to the period where Bob Mueller was at the FBI, heading the FBI, where James Comey was leading the investigation of the Clinton Foundation, where Rod Rosenstein was deciding not to prosecute Clinton Foundation, even though there was obvious fraud. How, a box or decision process could go through that. I know what we'll do. So to give the public complete confidence, we're going to get the very people who should be investigated. We're going to give them the role of getting to the bottom of this thing. It's so far away from what I understand to be the standard operating procedures in the Justice Department, in theory, that you not only do you avoid conflicts, these are actual conflicts of interest, but to preserve the idea that the American justice system is fair and balanced and unbiased, you try to avoid the appearance of impropriety. I mean, this is the definition of impropriety. Yeah. So I think what we're seeing play out here is, how deep is the rot? And in the second link there, when did we suddenly lose? When did Congress and the Senate lose oversight authority over the deep state? I don't understand how people could be issuing subpoenas, and Rosenstein and others, and now with the missing messages, will say, you know what, we're just not going to give you any of this stuff.
It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. And the people who would stand up and try to defend that proposition should be fired with extreme prejudice. We need to go through this process. We need to figure out how deep is the rot. And Congress needs to get back in the business of doing its constitutional oversight authority on a timely basis. Justice should not be able to say, oh, yeah, we're working on those emails. We'll get those to you. I think we'll get them to you in like 2164. Right. Will you be around that? No, nobody will be around it. Anyway, that's ridiculous. Then the third link, this is a very important thing that happened. There's a sitting judge, a federal judge, I think a Reagan-era appointee, who listened. This is the first time somebody listened to the argument that Mueller's team was advancing about, the basis for the investigation. And the guy was like, he literally, according to the transcript, the judge got there to a certain point, heard the argument, and his reaction was to say the words, "Come on, come on." And I mean, that's exactly the attitude I have. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I say this all the time, but I understand the statute that gives rise to these special counsel prosecution or special counsel investigations. You can't start in our system just investigating Jason Goodman or Charles Ortel or Laura Loomer. You start investigating a crime. Collusion is not a crime. So the very basis upon which this thing started in May of 2017, I think, is deeply flawed. And it is now, a year later, a lot of people, I don't know how many different attorneys are working with Mueller and their staffs and the expenses they're running up, are burning a lot of money and are using Gestapo tactics against Manafort and others in pursuit of what? You know, and this, for the first time, a federal judge has stood up there. Now, he may continue to allow Mueller to go ahead with his investigation, but as the very able, distinguished lawyer Joe DeGenova mentioned this morning, it's quite likely that what this judge will do is to say, all right, your investigation continues. It's just that you can't use any of the evidence you seized from Manafort's home when he went in there.
Yeah.
And maybe the other judge vis-a-vis Cohen might say the same thing. So when I got into this way back when, thinking about the Clinton Foundation, I was told that there's a really serious process within justice, that when the Justice Department decides whether resources should be allocated to a case, there are guidelines, there are formal guidelines. It's not like there's abundant, unlimited resources in the Justice Department. There are only so many talented people, there are only so many U.S. attorneys, there are only so many investigators who can help them. And in theory, our Department of Justice tries to take on the cases that are the most significant, where there is a chance of winning, and where by winning there's a chance of sending a message to the public at large. Don't do this. And I don't see that process having applied here in a special Mueller, a decision to appoint special Mueller, special Mueller,
Special Olympics.
Special I don't get it.
It's the Special Counsel Olympics, Charles.
well, we could do a show on that, actually. So the other thing, in the fourth link there, that's all about Mueller's allegations against the troll farm. And another judge said, well, you know what? You want a delay. We don't understand why. You can't have it. You're not getting it. No soup for you. So I think that Mueller is not exactly on his front feet at the moment. And then we get to your friend, U.S. Representative Louis Gohmert's 48-page piece. I did not know when I first was reading it that he's a former chief judge of the state of Texas. So, that's pretty impressive. What he had
I think I've got the wrong link there.
No, that's the right one. That's the right one. And let's see what
Dershowitz.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they're talking. They reference in that piece. They reference Gohmert. But also, I put that one up there, linked here, just to note that here we have in a real scholar. I mean, Alan Dershowitz. You could dislike his political views, you can embrace his political views, but you have to agree that this is a person who has a truly distinguished legal career and is also a truly distinguished expert on the Constitution, on the criminal process. And so he has been stridently, fairly critical of this whole process. And I think we need to take note of that carefully.
It's quite disturbing, Charles, how people who dislike Donald Trump on a personal level or whatever are okay with, bending the process and going outside the law to, I don't even think prosecute is the right word, it's persecute, because we can't just make up things to do to get people who we don't like. Everybody's got to adhere by the same, innocent until proven guilty and all that, busting in these lawyers' doors and busting in everybody's door and taking all their stuff and trying to gin up evidence. It's really terrible.
That it is. And it's, it's really strange that the very people who led or were involved in the progressive movement or liberal movement who would talk about the dangers posed by excessive prosecutorial zeal by the establishment against radicals would be the very same ones who are quite happy to turn these zealots loose and set very dangerous precedents. Who's to say that we don't end up with somebody in the wrong end of the political spectrum who says, you know what, I see here what these people are doing. Now let's show them a real trick or two.
Yeah.
And let's have that person be someone who might go and prosecute aggressively progressives and liberals and civil rights leaders and things like that. I know we don't want to see that, but the people are commenting. The majority of the people I hear, to the extent I spend much time on listening to mainstream media, they're delusional. They just don't see
they're part of it. They're trying to manufacture this consent among the public. Don Lemon, I think, his duty to say that Donald Trump is a racist and all this kind of stuff.
He's absurd. Don Lemon should just pick another line of work. He really should.
Pick a lemon.
Well, he is a lemon. So this whole question of Rod Rosenstein, I believe you and I were among the first to put the spotlight on this Rosenstein character. And I really think there's got to be some bad reasons why this person, who's a summa cum laude graduate of Wharton, then a graduate of Harvard Law School, I think, why would this person make so many bad decisions? In his initially being inserted into the Justice Department. I really want to know, and I think the American people deserve to know who put forward Rod Rosenstein as the candidate to be Deputy Attorney General, who vouched for him, who vetted him, how much do we really know about this person's extended, through his wife and other means, ties into the swamp, and how could he make so many bad decisions? First appointing Mueller, then apparently allowing Mueller to circumvent the normal search warrant process, signing certain FISA warrant requests well after the public outcry concerning what Mueller was doing. And Cheryl Atkinson, somebody I do respect, and I know you've met and respect Cheryl as well, the whole special counsel process is riddled with conflicts of interest. It really is. And, at what point does the President of the United States have to stand up and say, on the balance of issues, on the one hand, this thing has gone on for almost a year, and it's cost this country a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's also costing, in terms of precedent, it's costing us in untold ways. At what point does Donald Trump actually have an obligation to say, you know what, that's it, enough. Now we're going to move into Chapter 2. In Chapter 2, we're going to investigate this process.
Well, I think obviously, Charles, they've put it together in such a way that Trump doing that would appear to many people to be an overreaching thing where he's shutting down the investigation into himself. Although I don't agree with that. I think that's how they've set it up. Well, so far, if you think about it, there's a hopeful way of thinking about the media bias. And the hopeful way is Donald Trump and Melania Trump and the larger Trump orbit have been subjected to the most hostile and withering assessment of all of their actions, literally since the day that, or the moment that it was announced that he had won, early in the morning following Election Day on that Wednesday. Or before.
But I'm saying the reason that it wasn't as bad, I would argue, post-election as it has been, pre-election as it has been post-election. They honestly expected this nuisance to go away. They thought they'd rigged the election, and Donald Trump would get back to building office parks again, maybe do the Celebrity Apprentice 3 or something, whatever it would be. And that evening, the immediate reaction was, okay, let's put that insurance policy in place. I think we're going to discover that as the bad returns were coming in, the people who had the most to lose, whether it's Brennan and Clapper and people like that, we better get our contingency plan going here. And then it was, let's do a recount. Right. Let's get Jill Stein all ginned up. There were so many backhanded, underhanded means were put against this person who had legitimately won an election, including Hillary Clinton's absurd purple resistance pantsuit, movement, and all of that. And yet, with all of that, Donald Trump's approval rating is today above 50% in the Rasmussen poll. That's Charles, pretty impressive.
Perhaps they'll run Barney the dinosaur in 2020. He's purple.
I kind of like Barney. So, what a brief plug. We don't really need, Joe DeGenova does not need our help, but I am highly impressed with his analysis, including today on Fox News Sunday. He's doing an excellent job of explaining in a grounded, level-headed, and experienced way what is really going on at this point. And so I highly encourage people to watch him carefully. You're on the preceding link, which is Newt Gingrich has a great piece. It's okay. Has a great piece talking about
Michael Caputo was an advisor to Donald Trump's presidential campaign.
The need for Donald Trump to think very carefully about sitting down with Mueller, and it's not such a good idea. You now have up the agenda thing. I can't
Charles.
see the viewership. It's okay. What does it say there in terms of the number of viewers on that?
Let me check that real quick. It says 21,367 viewers.
And that's something that was how long, does it say?
Posted May 2nd, 4 days ago.
But in length, the clip is how long?
Oh, looks like it's about 9 minutes in length.
Right. So for our viewership, to put this is Fox News posting or somebody posting a Fox News clip on YouTube. Now there may be other versions of this clip, so this may be just a fractional number of viewers. But this puts in perspective our typical podcast is about 2 hours long, and on many of them we were getting well above 20,000 views for something that's much longer. So to see this only get whatever you said, 20,000+ views for a 9-minute clip, I think it puts in perspective how well your podcasts are doing this.
Well, yeah, thank you, Charles, for pointing that out. And I think it also clarifies the desire of those that keep striking the various channels to shut it down and stifle the reach. It's always seems to be happening at the moment where some pivotal piece of information. We did that great video with Fabien Chalandon, which revealed all the stuff with Unitaid, and then shortly after that, Nicolas Sarkozy was arrested, and that video was, thumbs down strike of 1,100 thumbs down, and then the channel gets strike, so we can't live stream. There's a very clear effort afoot to suppress the ability to put out this information. It's not in line with the narrative that whoever is striking the channels wants people to hear.
It's funny, as you said that, another show idea came to me. You used the word stifle. And so immediately I think of Archie Bunker. Stifle, Edith, stifle. Which then got my mind to say, we got to do a show, all in the Grifter family. That's simple.
That's good. That is good. So, sorry, did we get to cover this Newt Gingrich article enough?
Yes, we did. We can move to the next page.
Great.
So I don't know what that is. We want we want the next page of the slides.
Sorry, next page of the slides. Got it. That was some PDF that was in here.
Right, I'll explain what that is. So the next page. Yeah, all right. This is very, very important. Okay, so we're back now in 2013. And this is as Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton are getting ready to steal the Clinton Foundation from, or to corrupt the Clinton Foundation. So news emerged. This would ordinarily be a gigantic story by any responsible journalist. On the 9th of May, 2013, we learned in the thing that you had put up there, and we don't need to bring it back up, but we provide a link to the actual settlement agreement with the crooked Indian drug maker Ranbaxy. A settlement that had taken about, I would say, from the news of first problems, not to when our government got involved, it had taken 9 years. It started in 2004, August. They don't ultimately reach a settlement until the 9th of May, 2013. And this crooked drug company agrees all in to pay about $500 million, which is a lot of money anywhere. But in India is a tremendous amount of money. This is U.S. currency, not Indian rupees. So This is at that time the Indian rupee is not wholly convertible to U.S. dollars.
What does that mean?
So this is well, you know, when you go into Switzerland or in America, when you travel, our currency is freely convertible into other currencies. In India, they ration the amount. They make it harder for you to convert if you have rupees that you made, you know, selling drugs to an Indian customer, and you now want to use those rupees to buy Swiss francs. The Indian government says, not so fast, Buster. You know, we got problems. We can't have you competing with us, trying to sell rupees. We got to restrict that, and so the currency's weak. So this is a large amount of money for this Indian drug maker to surrender. And what the New York Times should have been asking, you know, in addition to what they, you know, may have asked about, well, what they should have been asking here is what was really going on with Ranbaxy. You know, how much of America's generic drugs are provided by this crooked Indian company? How much of the drugs that Ranbaxy was selling were being sold to the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR? Where were these drugs going? Why weren't they tested? Why did the FDA let them off so laxly? Why did it take so long to get to the bottom of this? And most of all, the New York Times should today be asking, who was the point person on this Ranbaxy settlement? And the answer to that question is Rod Rosenstein. Okay? So
most people don't know that, Charles.
I know. Well, we've been doing a few, and that gives you the actual settlement agreement. You could see his signature there. It's under his name as the U.S. attorney for Maryland.
We got to see
the next day. Yeah, you can go see that if you want. You have to scroll a few pages in to see it.
I should have prepared it with that crazy, comical, Mad Hatter photograph of him that we've been enjoying so much for the past few.
I think if you go, so that's the relator. Keep going.
Go up.
It's above that. It's Ranbaxy. I think.
A lot of people signing this thing.
Well, it's a serious matter.
These are serious people, Charles.
They were.
They're in serious trouble. Well, how many times do they need to sign it? Well, anyway, sorry, I shouldn't have done this.
We could move on, maybe.
Yeah. Here's no signatures.
Yeah, this is just the signature page of the relevant person. But anyway, you could take it, the Rod Rosenstein's name is there, right there. Just got it. Just went past it.
Right there. There he is.
Okay. And so deputies working for him signed on his behalf.
I see. That's interesting.
Yeah. So the real questions there for me, if I were in the New York Times vaunted elite journalism group, now wait a minute, that's a lot of money, and what was really happening? What was Ranbaxy doing? How many Ranbaxy drugs were being provided to what parties around the world for what purpose? And are we sure that we caught them? And why? Why did Ranbaxy have leverage to stall this process over the course of from first notice 9 years? So the next day, you get the IRS commissioner. This CNN, and I'm loath to cite CNN as a source of fact, but there's a timeline people can look at, and it says that the IRS commissioner helped Lois Lerner pre-butt or leak out this idea that conservatives may have been targeted by the IRS starting in 2010. Okay, so that caused a lot of attention. Fox and others jumped all over. Wait a minute, you're telling me that the IRS was actually targeting conservatives and right-leaning groups beginning before the 2010 midterms and then afterwards through 2012?
Tea Party, right?
Yeah, that's really serious stuff. I mean, in prior episodes of this kind of temptation, under Nixon, people who messed around with a limited number of tax filers went to prison for a long time. So here, if you had coordination, you had a coordinated IRS, Department of Justice, executive branch effort to weaponize the IRS, to use it both to let the crooked Clinton Foundation skate and sail through and ignore every single conceivable law, and while at the same time adopting this enormously tough standard against actual conservative groups or groups that had not yet been formed and authorized as tax exempt by the IRS, but appeared to be possibly right-leaning. You're going to land on them. You get to let the Clintons skate. This begins to become a rather serious set of contexts to consider here. Then the 13th, after the Lois Lerner news is leaked, on the 13th, the actual details of the settlement are released. We provide that to you. So by the 28th of June, for some reason, and we don't yet know why, although I have a pretty good guess, the Clinton Foundation gets new auditors for this Clinton Health Access Initiative that was formed in September 29, 2009. They get new auditors for that group, separate and distinct from the horrible firm of BKD LLP, which has been slaughtering the Clinton Foundation's actual audits or purported audits ever since 2002, which is the first audit I've seen for BKD. They're so far away from being compliant with the regulations. I've now got that confirmed from multiple accounting firms. You can see it just not even being an expert in accounting. You can look at the rules and you can see what have been passed off as audits are not audits. And so a new firm is brought in. That new firm on June 28, 2013 says, you know what? You got to change completely the basis upon which you've been accounting. We're by far and away the largest piece of the Clinton Foundation, the largest donor, which is Unitate. And Fabien has taken us through this many different times. But by the 28th of June, we have proof that you should not be taking, and a confirmation of the fact that the Clinton Foundation had incorrectly accounted for Unitate grants. And I'll show you the significance in a second of that. But by the 10th of September 2013, the main Clinton Foundation, the parent one that everyone knows best, decides they're going to keep on accounting for these Unitate grants in the consolidated Clinton Foundation numbers the incorrect way. So here you have the drug question, you have the targeting question, you have the incorrect accounting question. These are reasons why a New York Times reporter should be very, very skeptical about the Clinton Foundation. And it should have been digging a lot more deeply into matters. So if we go down that page a little to the table, just need to adjust my, oops.
Right there?
Yeah, I just need to move my cursor on my page. Look at this. In 2012, Unitate sent the Clinton Foundation $81.5 million, supposedly to buy commodities or drugs in test kits. They only spent $67.9 million. So they basically had $13.6 million, the use of $13.6 million during 2012. Why did they take money from Unitate and not spend it? These are big questions. What specifically did they buy with this money? When did the monies come in to the Clinton Foundation? These are questions that a real accounting firm would ask, right? And in 2011, the numbers were even bigger. Then they took in $129.2 million. I mean, that's huge money. And they only spent $105.7 million, so they had use of $23.5 million during 2011. And how did they account for that? Currencies in this time period were moving all over the place, up and down and sideways. There were all sorts of problems. So this is an accounting mess, and it also is something that you would look at. We're not talking about their smallest donor. We're talking by far and away their biggest donor. They're incorrectly accounting for it. There's a potential for fraud all over the place. And we know that from the stuff that Fabien's given us, the testimony, we know that from 2007 through 2009, Mr. Douce-Blazy himself, the head of Unitate, said that 90% of the medicines purchased by Unitate by the Clinton Foundation were from India. So the question is, what percentage of those, that 90%, came from Ron Boxey? If you had a serious team at the New York Times, which we don't anymore, if you had a serious team, you'd be going back over this ground and saying, look, this is a massive fraud. Well, how did we miss this? Why did we miss this?
I love that name, Deuce Blasey. It's so fancy. Charles, I don't mean to distract, but someone in the audience here, David Donway, has just coined the phrase eunuch aid. So that's interesting.
That's a good one. All right. Well, so now we see in the next page how things happen. In the next page, what we have here is from the WikiLeaks Podesta dump. We find out that the New York Times, one of the New York Times reporters, is trying to get to see John Podesta. You see he's asking, hey, Matt McKenna suggested we chat more specifically about the unwinding of CGI, that's the Clinton Global Initiative, and CHI, the Clinton Health Access Initiative, from the foundation, so that I can understand some of the technicalities a little better. Is there a good time to try you back? So we know that by July 30th, 2013, Nick Confessor is not fully engaged yet into the process of getting to the bottom of what was happening, just as all this accounting mayhem was beginning to come together. Understand that when accountants render their final letter, as BKD did on September 10th, they've been doing work long before that. So there should have been people really nervous about what was going on. So instead what happens, Bill and Chelsea, at considerable expense, get on a slew of chartered jets and fly over to Africa, as they always do in August, apparently. And there's a big, hullabaloo as they go country to country and see starving waif A over here and healthy waif B over here. And so all their improvement in health is all due to the Clinton Foundation. But there's no real assessment of, is the Clinton Foundation in compliance with the laws of each African country, each donor nation, each American state? None of that. You're just flying around Africa on safari, hearing these speeches.
Why go in August? It seems like it must be hot in August.
It depends where you are in Africa, that there are good times and bad times to go based on the rainy season. Because remember, you're below the equator in certain places, and it just really depends where they're going. But they've just made it an annual thing that they go to Africa on this tour. They invite journalists, and they give journalists exclusive. So by August 13th, 2013, this article comes out by Nick and Amy Chozick, the lady who wrote the book recently. And I'm not going to read these words, but Bill Clinton was extremely upset. He pens a vigorous riposte to this, but here they're talking about conflicts of interest, multi-million-dollar deficits for several years, even though large sums of money flew in. They're talking in the second paragraph about how suddenly Hillary Clinton and her staff are going to move into this new office of the Clinton Foundation. By what right does Hillary Clinton get to have her staff paid for by the Clinton Foundation? I mean, there's no basis for that. You don't, because you set up a foundation, that doesn't give you the right to just put your political expenses.
Was she still Secretary of State at that time?
No, she left February 1st, 2013.
Okay. So
this is in this period where she was play acting, that she didn't really know what she was going to do next, and somebody was ghostwriting her book for her, and she needed a place to park. And
I could believe that she doesn't know what she's going to do next.
Yeah, right. She was determined to be the next
method.
president. Right. And so these are warning signs. Conflict, gigantic bad accounting. You don't run a deficit in a foundation. You watch your expenses very carefully. You know what your grants are going to be, and you're by nature, if you're a trustee of a charity, you're conservative. You're careful. Obviously, these people weren't. Then they get involved, letting her political team be paid, portions of it paid for by the Clinton Foundation, right? And then I love this thing that these efforts highlighted just how difficult it can be to disentangle the Clintons' charity work from Mr. Clinton's money-making ventures and Mrs. Clinton's political future. Another way to read that is, this is prime facie evidence of fraud. You're not allowed to combine money-making and charitable, and you're certainly not allowed to have a publicly supported entity do anything that is partisan.
Right.
And then when describing the many people they spoke to, nearly all of them declined to speak for attribution, citing their unwillingness to alienate the Clinton family, which is another way of saying, citing their unwillingness to become Vince Foster. I mean, this stuff right here, by August 13th, 2013, the New York Times and its leadership, if they have an ombudsman or anybody to look at this, they've got to go back over this ground and say, why did you miss the obvious fraud back then? Why did you miss it? If you go to the next page, by the 2nd of November 2013, and we have provided this information to the crowd before, so there isn't a link up of it. I just took key sections. This is what the Clinton people did on the 2nd of November 2013. Now, they hid this from most of the states. Somehow Georgia got wind of it in 2013. Other states got wind of it in 2015, 16, and 17. But instead of immediately disclosing this incredibly defective and illegal set of acts, they hid it. They set up this scenario where there would be two classes of directors, Class A and Class B. And the Clintons were named as Class A, and the remaining were Class B. In the old way of doing things, all directors served for a year, were renewed after a year. In this method, the Class A directors basically serve for life, till their resignation, removal, or death. Okay? Class B directors serve for 3 years. Right? So the Class A directors, they mention here, directors shall owe to the corporation duties of loyalty and care. Actually, under Arkansas law, you owe duties of loyalty, care, and obedience to all law. But they somehow thought that they could draft these bylaws and not put that in there. Then they make it, I won't get deeply into the weeds here, but in Article 2, Section 16, basically, though the Clintons comprise a small percentage of the total number of directors, A and B combined, nothing happens. Nothing is a valid act unless a majority of the Class A directors approve it, meaning the Clintons have ironclad control of the foundation at board meetings. And then there's an executive committee. And guess who they are? The Clintons. And the Clintons have the right to operate the Clinton Foundation in between board meetings. There are not many board meetings at the Clinton Foundation. So this means that fundamentally at all times, the Clinton family has ironclad control of the Clinton Foundation. This is a highly material, change. I would argue, not being a lawyer, that it is an illegal change, not valid under Arkansas law or other laws, and it defies the explicit, of course, hidden requirements in the agreement with the National Archives struck on the 18th of November 2004. So of course they try to hide this.
But you did just come up with the title for her next book, Charles. Nothing happens.
Nothing happens unless I say it happens.
Right.
Yeah. But so the real question for the lawyers and the prosecutors and the investigators is, okay, how did you effectuate this change? At what board meeting? When was the board meeting, and what really happened? Show us evidence that a board meeting was held, that there was a quorum, the required number of people were there. There were 3 directors on November 1st, 2013. Chelsea Clinton, Terry McAuliffe, and Bruce Lindsay. How did those three directors have the gumption to destroy the Clinton Foundation legally the way they did? What deliberation was there? What lawyers were involved? How long did the meeting last? What outside counsel was brought in to help which parties? Did anyone object to this change? Or did the Clinton family just ramrod this through? Now, bear in mind, at that time frame, there were only 3 directors. Okay, Chelsea Clinton, by rights, should not, for her sake, she better hope she didn't vote in favor of this, because she should not have been allowed to vote, because she has an obvious conflict of interest, right?
What's the obvious conflict for Chelsea?
The obvious conflict for Chelsea is that as a normal director, she was one of 3 directors with no superpower. But by voting to concentrate the power to run the affairs of this large foundation in the hands of her mother, father, and herself, that is a blatant conflict of interest. She's better off in theory, right? You can't do that. So she, by the rules of the game, she shouldn't have voted. So the first question is, did she vote? Okay. If she did not vote, that leaves you only 2 directors. Now, technically, maybe these 2 directors could both vote in favor of it, right? But let's think about the conflicts of interest that Terry McAuliffe and Bruce Lindsay have. And Bruce Lindsay has been the lifelong consigliere. He was the only person paid significant money by the foundation here. He was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as a salary and some benefits, and then his law firm was paid. So you could argue he had a conflict of interest here. And Terry McAuliffe has always been a fundraiser for the Clintons, and at one point helped the Clintons to get a mortgage for their first mansion when they couldn't get a mortgage.
He's Mr. Conflict of Interest.
Yeah, so I mean, you look at this and through a different prism than operated before. Now Donald Trump is the president, time has passed. You look at these decisions, there is a record. The Clinton Foundation says we have no records, then they're completely sunk. There's going to be some record, and it'll be very interesting to see what it says. Well, I can tell you about a few problems that they haven't considered on the next page. We know, as I mentioned, that Bruce and Terry and Chelsea were directors on the 1st of November. On the 14th of November 2013, we have recovered a filing sent across state lines to Colorado on that date, where they claim by the 14th they have 6 directors: Chelsea, Bruce, Terry, Eric Braverman, Hillary, and Bill. But they don't tell Colorado the material fact that the Clinton family controls the charity now. They don't reveal that material fact, which they were obligated to do. And they send this filing across state lines using the mail. On the 15th of November 2013, they fill in their 990, their report to the IRS, which is also then sent across the country and around the world. There they claim, 2 weeks after concentrating the power into Hillary, Bill, and Chelsea, they claim, no, we only have 3 directors. And those are Bruce, Chelsea, and Terry. Blatant lie. And that filing is sent across state lines. These are sworn filings under penalties of perjury. This IRS filing is sent across state lines from Arkansas or New York into most likely Ogden, Utah. And this is a material omission that you do not provide the actual adjusted bylaws, which are, I think, real lawyers will tell us, will confirm that they're just abomination, to pick a phrase. There are other states are sent this filing as well, but by the 21st of November 2013, the largest piece of the Clinton Foundation amends its historical reports for 2010 and 2011 and provides an amended report for 2012, correctly accounting in the tax filings for the fact that just for those 3 years, 10, 11, and 12, the sums that the Clinton Foundation received for Unitaid were agency transactions, not principal transactions, the effect of which is to dramatically shrink the size of the reported program, the crucial program service activities of the biggest piece of the Clinton Foundation, and therefore for the whole Clinton Foundation, had they done that right, which they didn't, of course, do right. Then, on the 22nd of November, they send a filing to North Carolina and one to Pennsylvania, where now they're down to 5 directors. Terry McAuliffe is not a director in these 2 filings. So which is it? Is it 3? Is it 5? Is it 6? Is there a Class A, Class B? These are highly material facts. And the smartest,
switching it all the time, huh?
Right. And none of these filings in this time frame get into any of the illegal private gains that the Clinton family got. For example, from Laureate from 2010, starting in May of 2010, all the speeches, any other investment deals. None of these are disclosed. And you can't do it, the way the Clintons are fond of doing it. Send in a 200-page document that puts in footnotes parts of the answers some places. You're supposed to make full and fair disclosure of just exactly how much was the Clinton family benefit in terms of reimbursed expenses for over-the-top private jet travel for Chelsea Clinton, maybe not needed travel for Hillary and Bill, these laureate payments. None of this stuff is disclosed yet in any of these filings. And here you have the Clinton family, at best, the best case for them is that they illegally attempted to take control of the Clinton family, Clinton Foundation, and will then say, well, we did have this provision which is in there saying that if any of the changes we made violate laws, then we didn't try or we didn't do it. That doesn't help you so much, right?
Right.
So there's a big set of questions around how the Clinton Foundation bylaws were reorganized. There's a big set of questions for the current supposed outside directors of the Clinton Foundation. Many names we haven't gotten into yet because we'll do that in a subsequent presentation. When were each of these outsiders notified about the true state of the Clinton Foundation, about the true state of the reorganization, about the true state of the bylaws? How many of these different independent directors knew about this information, and when did they know it, and who told them, or by what means? This is a whole level of investigation involving rich people, powerful people with a lot to lose. So this is what the New York Times should have been focusing on, not doing a travelogue about a trip to Africa and throwing a few barbs in that missed the heart of the matter.
Perhaps Carlos Slim was editing that article.
Probably. Now, we could go, we're going through record time here. What's going on here is, it would seem that many people are becoming aware of their potential criminal liability, actual criminal liability, and they're starting to work hard on defense and survival strategies. That's why Lisa Page and this Baker fellow, I think, suddenly jumped ship, in my opinion.
You mean people who are sort of co-conspirators are becoming aware of their own liability? Whoops, something.
Right, give me 1 second here. No, it's me. It's me. I got it.
That's okay.
I don't know what happened there. You there?
I'm here. Yep.
Can you see me?
I do, but you're sideways.
Okay, let me just see what happened there is.
That's fine. We can carry on like that.
All right, I got a notice that I was running out of time on my battery.
Running out of battery?
Anyway, well, it's okay. We've got 24%. I could try to charge it up. But anyway,
let's carry on.
So
if it gets to 10%, we'll charge it up.
All right. So what we're seeing is that President Trump, now that the weather's getting better and he's getting various things done and behind him, he's now more regularly traveling the nation. And I don't know if you had a chance to see the recent one that he did, which is linked there. I mean, he has got his show buttoned down, and he's basically going around the country saying, I ran promising you this, and this is how I'm keeping my promises, and this is why you're better off, and we're only going to do better. And he is going to regularly do that. Mainstream press is going to regularly try to savage him, try to concoct fake news story after fake news story. But I think you're beginning to see real energy creep back in to Donald Trump's step. Not that he ever lacked energy, but I mean a higher level of energy as he goes around the country saying, listen, you want my agenda? We've got to change the makeup of Congress. We've got to get more aggressive here. And I think he's going to be very successful doing that. Give me a second here, Jason. I want to charge this quickly.
No problem, Charles. I got to say, I think that President Trump is really kind of, getting his bearings in the role, and he seems to be doing a great job. I mean, hopefully all of the efforts he's doing, I mean, this is definitely his strong suit, these types of public appearances and, making fun of people who say stupid things.
Right. So what I would say here, the one caution I would have for him is on the question of jobs and incomes. You know, we get these job reports and we see wages are not going up as much as we want. We see new hirings, but we don't see on pre-tax incomes, we don't see pre-tax wages climbing. And part of that could be that the degree to which machines and technology and software can replace an ever larger slice of the economy is a major league headwind for a country like the United States, where our workers are so highly paid on world scale. So that's one cautionary note here. I hope that many more jobs come back from abroad than are lost by these advances in technology, but it's not all roses here. There's some daunting technological headwinds that we need to understand better. So I did notice overnight that there's a story out that Donald Trump's reaching out to people who were so helpful to him on the first victory, Steve Bannon being one of those people.
Interesting.
And that is interesting. Of course, this week, a major question is going to be, what will President Trump do about the Iran deal? And I certainly hope he scraps it. He consigns it to the dustbin of history. And we then we investigate and figure out who profited from that deal and how did they profit, and was any of that profiting illegal? Because it would not surprise me that people around the swamp were paid off to get that deal across the line. So that's something I want to know. I am not particularly worried about Iran as a military threat to the United States, but I think the people of Iran are not happy with the malacracy and the corruption over there. So I think there is an opportunity to really change things around in Iran for the better of the Iranian people. And I hope Donald Trump seizes on scrapping this deal as an important way forward.
Charles,
we saw.
I was texting with Robin Gritz yesterday, and she was telling me that she feels part of the reason she was kind of pushed out was because of her work on the Robert Levin case and how it was somehow impeding this Iran deal, and that Andrew McCabe was running interference and sort of wanted to get her the hell out of there.
Wouldn't shock me. And so we have our friend Hector, who has been telling us about a situation in the United Arab Emirates. That's where a princess in the royal family may have been either trying to flee the country or whatever. But we're now seeing BBC reporting on it. And I bring it up just to state that anytime you have vast sums of money in a monarchy, you have the potential for corruption. And I think we could see destabilization in the United Arab Emirates and maybe Qatar and other places as everything starts playing out now with vigor across the Middle East.
And I apologize to Hector, Charles, because he's been contacting me and wanting to come on and do a story about this, and we will do that as soon as possible.
Great. So you, Jason, were very correct to point out this whole wishy-washy explanation about what was going on with the Skripal incident in the UK, and then also with the reports of Navy gassing in Syria. I think that Theresa May and the UK and the world have a major league problem with what's going on with the security apparatus inside the UK. I think the same sorts of problems that we see playing out in our FBI and our security services. There are similar problems in the UK, and we need to root out and get to the bottom of why do so many problems touching Russia now have a hand in the UK and still must stay in other ways. So as far as some good news, we do see that investigators and prosecutors are taking a lot more time and energy to go after small security frauds. We have, we talked about it before, Corinne Brown and Steve Stockman. Now there's, I believe, a similar set of issues around a charity in, is it in Missouri? I think it's Missouri, with the embattled governor there. We're starting to see that U.S. attorneys, the IRS, and other parties can really make an issue of small charity frauds. So the big question is, why? What is it going to take Sorry?
Look at this. They've got Shaggy. It wasn't me. Oh, you put it there. It's a Pauly Z article. That makes sense. Sorry, Charles.
It's all right. So people are beginning to take these charity frauds seriously. And we're starting to get this articles that I do and that work that you're doing is starting to get noticed by very famous people like Thomas Lifson over at the American Thinker. Wrote a piece about the one I did recently in Pauly Z, and that piece got picked up by Lucienne Goldberg, Lucienne.com. So I think we're beginning to see that the attention is focused, thanks to your great work, Jason, doing this around the world on the fly in New York and everywhere else. Thanks to the viewers who are circulating these videos around and helping us get attention. We've got this looming deadline of May 15th, 2018, where foundations and donors to foundations need to make important filings. The fact that we haven't had anyone come and say there's no investigation, or the fact that we haven't had the Clintons mount a full-throated, fact-based defense of their grifting,
right,
I think tells us that events are moving here. And I can't promise on a day when this is going to come to a head, but it sure seems to me, Jason, and to our viewers, as if your patience, your hard work, your sharing of all this news is having an impact. And dare I say, things could happen any day.
Charles, you raised an important point, because in doing what we're doing, and since I began Crowdsource the Truth, there's a lot of people who have accused me of horrendous crimes, and I don't let that stand. I defend myself when someone makes all these false accusations. I insist on evidence. I find it very telling when you accuse someone of a crime, present evidence, and they do not mount any kind of strong or official defense, and they just ignore it, as the Clintons have.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Clintons and the Obamas are looking at this through a political lens, and Donald Trump and his team may be looking at this through a crisis management, economic business lens. And what the Clinton people probably believe is that Americans have a short attention span, that once we get past Memorial Day, nobody's going to listen to any of this. Then we get back to Labor Day. And that's when the political season will begin. And then the excuse will be, oh, we can't do anything about this Clinton Foundation now. That's all political retribution.
Right.
So they're just hoping they can run the clock out, get us past Memorial Day, get us past May 15th without any indictments. And then they'll be able to use their oracles in the press, the corrupt oracles in the press, as the convenient lapdogs that they have been for the Clintons and the Obamas. And they'll manufacture all sorts of crises and problems, et cetera, and the blue wave will overwhelm Team Trump. That's their theory.
Right.
I don't think the facts are working for them.
Well, I agree. I think that it's taking time, but this is, years and decades of corruption that can't be drained quite so quickly. So hopefully, as you say, any day. I really do think that particularly Andrew McCabe and James Comey are dangerously close to some kind of indictment or prosecution or something like that. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right. I think what's going to happen first is that we're going to get more snippets of this Horowitz report.
Yeah.
And people are going to learn of its contents, and those are going to start to leak out, and the report itself may come out. Plus, I would note that we found last week that the FBI is issuing more and more additions to the FBI vault records.
Right.
So there are lots of ways that we can get more information out. People who aren't being interviewed by Mueller, people who are being perhaps interviewed by the various processes that may be going on around the country and around the world. Eventually, things are going to...
Charles? Oh, Charles, you there? Oh, I think Charles's battery may have died. Charles, did I just lose you? Yes. Well, unfortunately, Charles, his battery may have just gone there. Hopefully he will call back, plug that in, and get it charged up. There, I believe we're still live, so that may have occurred on his end. So, oops.